Oh, Los Altos. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Ash,
She
you're in San
does,
Jose.
I'm in
yes,
San Jose.
yeah.
I grew up in San Jose,
Oh,
Oh,
where in
nice.
San Jose?
Evergreen, back when it was
Mm,
Okay.
orchards. Now it's all homes, but
Yeah,
yes, everywhere was orchards.
that's
yeah.
right. There it was.
Okay, I have a water cup. It's not tea,
Perfect.
but it'll have to do.
You're good.
You're good.
A lot of the Indians, when they move here, it was orchards. Now they want no one else to move here. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's interesting how that happens.
Right?
All right, so it's 4.
Let's
And
just
we
wait
are
on
good
Sheila
to
to
go.
come back.
Yeah,
She just went to get
absolutely.
her cup of chai or mug.
Yes, and just for everybody, I would be interrupting once in a while to give time checks or bring in comments and questions from our audience.
Ash,
And
quick question
up to
for
you,
you.
Anjana.
Thank you. Ash, quick question for you. If the conversation is going well and there's lots of comments, are you able to stay till 5 or do you have a cutoff?
I should be able to, yeah. And it's up. Yeah, I should be able to. And I pronounce the name Ash, not Ash.
Oh, it's
Just
Ash. Okay.
yeah,
Okay, sorry.
no problem. It's spelled ASH. So
The
Yes,
assembly member
sorry.
is
I
much
went,
busier than any of us.
no,
Here.
no,
yes, that's, I mean, but all of you are busy.
yeah.
Prachi, you want me to get started?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Chai and Chat at India Currents. I'm Anjana Nagarajan Bhutani, and today we're talking about how each of us can make our voices heard and play a bigger role in shaping our communities. We're joined by some incredible local leaders here in the Bay Area. California State Assemblymember Ash Kalra represents California's 25th Assembly District, which encompasses the majority of San Jose. First elected in 2016, he became the first Indian American to serve in the state legislature. Assemblymember Kalra has a long-standing record of public service, having previously served 8 years on the San Jose City Council and 11 years in the County Public Defender's Office. Welcome.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sheila Mohan was the Mayor of Cupertino in 2024 and is currently a council member. She was born in Bangalore, India, and is a long-time resident of Cupertino. Welcome, Councilmember Mohan.
Thank you.
Longtime San Mateo resident, Councilmember Nicole Fernandez, is a proud first-generation American and the first person of South Asian origin to serve on the San Mateo City Council. She is also San Mateo County Supervisor, Lisa Gautier's Chief of Staff. Welcome.
Thank you.
The Vice Mayor of San Carlos, Pranita Venkatesh, was elected to the City Council in 2022 after having served on the San Carlos Economic Development Advisory Commission for 3 years. She moved to San Carlos in 2009 to raise her 2 children and is an early childhood advocate, owning a Montessori preschool in the city. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for taking the time to talk to our community. We really appreciate it. Before we begin, I would like to go over some housekeeping to our audience. Please introduce yourself in the comments. We love seeing where you're from, and we want you to participate in the conversation. Put your questions and comments in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. There could be slight delays in our getting to your questions, so please be patient. Please keep comments respectful and on topic. We want this to be a positive space for everyone. And don't forget to hit the heart button if you're enjoying the conversation, and feel free to share this live with your friends who might find this conversation helpful. We'll be going on for about 40 minutes or so, so settle in. Hope your chai is warm. Let's get started. I want to kick things off with a question that I think is the most important one I really want to ask today. For our South Asian community, how can we get involved locally and why does it matter? Beyond just voting, what are some ways that people can really have a voice in the decisions that affect their cities and counties? Do you want to kick it off, as Assemblymember Kalra?
Sure. I think if at this moment in time you don't realize that it's important to be aware of what's happening in your community, in your country, what's happening with policy decisions being made, budget decisions, whether at the federal, state, local level. I think that I think you need to wake up, quite honestly. I think there's a lot happening right now that at the same time, I know that folks are busy, they're raising their kids and people are busy going to school and work. And there's also a temptation just to look away, because there's a lot going on right now. But I will say this, that we, as, as Americans, right, as Americans, it is so important for us to recognize and stand up and be present at this moment. Whether, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I think sometimes people feel like I would like to do something, but I don't have time or I don't know where to start. It doesn't have to be complicated. I'll just show up to your neighborhood association meeting. Show up at a rally, show up at your, to connect with your council member and say, hey, what are ways that I can get involved? Sign up for their newsletter, sign up for your county supervisor's newsletters that always talk about different events and meetings and town halls going on. And so I don't think that, I think it's so important that we get involved. I don't think you have to overcomplicate it as to what that means. What does that mean for you? Really, I think everyone can decide in what way they want to get involved, but I think that complacency has brought us to a place right now where we see a lot of chaotic things happening around us, and it's really typically the people in power and those that are making decisions and the chaos being created at times is being done by a very small percentage of people. The masses of folks are at home and are in some cases, again, looking away and just focusing on what they need to do for their families. But in many cases, I think there's a cloud and kind of this weight, I feel it all the time, upon us, and we just don't know what to do when we feel helpless. And so rather than feeling helpless, get out there, get out of the house, go to your farmer's market, find out what organizations are out there, and just put yourself out there. It can be a little intimidating, but trust me, I mean, that's how I got started, was just by putting myself out there. And I think these ladies who are elected officials will probably say the same thing. It doesn't, you can choose how much you want to get involved, but just get out of the house and find something to get involved with.
That's great advice. Get out there. Councilmember Sheila Mohan, what do you want to add to that?
I want to add the fact that it is really important to get involved in a local government, because most of the decisions that affect us are made or determined at the local level. And as in neighborhoods, in a city, in cities, and we work for cities, bike lanes, pedestrian crossings, traffic signals, trees coming down, branches on roads. These are the sort of critical issues that our residents face on a day-to-day basis. And for those to be resolved, it has to be, it's done at the local government level. And it's and most people should, I think, do consider it a privilege to be part of providing feedback to the government and really sort of shaping the neighborhood, the community, the city that you live in. We don't get privileges like that often. And 10 years from now, you can look back and say, hey, if this tree has been trimmed, maybe I had a little bit to do with it. So, and as an elected officials, this is what we look for. We want an engaged public. We want people to provide feedback one way or the other. Most of the feedback we get is not so great, because if people are happy with the way things are, they usually don't make that effort to come and tell us that we're doing great. But that's okay. If things are going great, then who needs us? So that's my take on it. We need input. We need local involvement. And in a city like ours, there are just many, many ways we can get involved, not just by voting, but we can join commissions. People can, there are community groups, there are task forces, there are neighborhood block leader programs. For young kids, there are teen programs, there are teen commissions, and summer activities. So there's just a whole range of activities people at all levels can get involved in. So it's just a matter of showing that additional curiosity or interest in wanting to do that.
That's wonderful. Curiosity. Councilmember Fernandez?
Yeah, a couple of things just to echo Assemblymember Kalra and Councilmember Mohan. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu, right? And so one thing is realize that if your skin's not in the game, whoever the ambiguous they is, they're going to determine how the government works. So in order for you to have a seat at the table, you need to get involved. To us as South Asians, as Desis, we are infinitely uncomfortable being political. It's just not in our nature. We roll with it. We sometimes see politics as not wanting to rock the boat. We come to America searching for better, but usually that's around business or lifestyle and not necessarily for politics. But we have to be comfortable in speaking up for ourselves and our community. And I love that there are more of us coming to the table, but there aren't nearly enough of us, especially in the Bay Area where the Desi community could really be a force politically. I love that we're having this event, but we need to be comfortable being political.
I agree. Vice Mayor Venkatesh, what do you want to add to this conversation?
I love all the comments going around, but I think some people think politician, you have to be like really a leader, which you are, but I was always that shy kid growing up. I was always behind my mom hiding. And now I have a voice at the table. And being in San Carlos, I started off really local at the economic development level. And a woman, our mayor, actually asked me to run. And it wasn't on my radar, but I've heard that if you're a woman, another woman asks you to run. So I don't know how many women that's true, but I think another woman asked you to run, right? So I think it's important. It's important to have a voice. I love my community, and I can see local changes. And you're like, oh, that building, I help vote on that. Or our colleagues came up together. Oh, we need more housing. Let's try to think of new ways to do housing. And I think if you really love your community, and I think I was the first brown person on our council because San Carlos is not typically South Asian. It's changing a little bit, but I also think you need to let yourself out there and be brave, but also be compassionate, because people are brave, but you also just need to care. So if you care about your community, run, have a voice, have a say, and I think you can make a big impact.
That's wonderful. Ours is a community of immigrants. Some of us are maybe first, maybe some of us are second generation immigrants. What do you think we bring to the table, not just for our community, but for immigrants as a whole, when we get involved in our communities? Anybody want to take that question, or do you mean to just?
I'm happy to take that.
Please
I think
do.
that we have a very unique, I'm first generation, so my parents and grandparents came here a few years before I was born. So I'm the first American born on both sides of my family. As an Assemblymember Kalra is the first Canadian, I think, born on both sides of his family. I think that we have a very unique perspective in that we have a dual perspective. We have our roots in the motherland, and we have the culture, that the values that shape us, the commitment to family that shapes us, but we also have the vibrancy and the individualism that comes with being an American. And I love that we get to shape our future. We really get a dual perspective, and that's very unique in this world.
That's wonderful. Our diaspora is wide, and Canadian, Nicole, Pakistani American. Pranita, I think you're Fijian, right?
I am.
That's wonderful. Do you have anything to add to this conversation?
Yeah, so I was a second generation here, and I saw my parents struggle so much. And because of their sacrifices and because they're always like, give back. So I feel like this is my way of giving back. You give, as Indians, you're always giving to something. So getting involved in politics was my way of contributing to my community. But I think it's also important that we saw our parents struggle, and that brings us a new perspective, right? It's like sometimes I think like, oh my gosh, those are first world problems. And you're like, we have some real problems, right? We had to sacrifice coming here, not having anybody that looked like us. Growing up, there was nobody that looked like me. So I think we have our own things that we struggle with that we can bring to the table, and that will just help everybody else fit in.
That's wonderful. Councilmember Mohan?
Yeah, I think I am a council member in Cupertino, which is 70% Asian. And, and there's a whole lot of fun being able to represent a large community. The Asian is, Chinese and Japanese and Indian and many other minority groups. But once I started working as a council member, first as a vice mayor, mayor, and then council member, the one thing I notice is that how much confidence it seems to have given other Asians in the community. There are kids and teenage uh, teenagers come up to me and say, "Oh, I didn't know this was possible. I didn't think we could do something like this." And really, that's the value. I mean, young people having hope, having confidence, and being able to think, hey, this is a direction or a path I can take, as opposed to limiting myself to being a doctor. I wouldn't say limiting, but whatever, choosing, the medical profession or the engineering profession, which is what our area is filled
Known
with.
for, yeah. I mean, you can still serve in local government or volunteer and be a doctor or an engineer.
Absolutely, and we have professionals working at all levels of government, and I think representation and the ability for people in the community to see you and say, maybe this isn't so as far-fetched as I would have thought a few years ago, and I think that's important.
Yes, representation does matter. During election years, people focus on the big races on top of the tickets. And the truth is that the bread and butter issues that some of you have already talked about that affect our daily lives happen at the local level, whether it's city or state. Can you talk about that? What are the things that people should know that are important that affect their lives, whether it's at the state level, Assemblymember Kalra, or at the city level for the other council members?
I think that all levels of government play a great role in people's quality of life. Certainly, having served on the city council, there's no doubt that much of what you consider, your community and the things that impact you, whether it's like more traffic or issues regarding crime or in safety, those are issues that are generally resolved at the local level, whether it's the city or the transit authority, and things of that nature. Obviously, the state has a lot of influence over aspects of your life when it comes to if you're a business owner or you want to go to the DMV, our healthcare system, both at the county and state level, where the state funds a lot of the services that exist there. But I think that we have to recognize the interconnectedness. So right now, with the federal government dramatically cutting back on healthcare, it's going to have an impact on the state's ability to be able to fund county services at the healthcare level, right? And so there is a domino effect. And I think understanding, okay, when the federal government makes this decision, well, that's just federal policy. Follow the path down to the local level to see how it impacts your community, how it impacts your neighbors. When there's immigration policy, when there's environmental policy. California is an environmental leader in the world. Yet when the federal government starts saying, well, we're going to start drilling offshore or we're going to open up these spaces to drill, that impacts all of us and our ability to protect. I mean, we moved to California. We love it for the environment as much as anything else. It's a beautiful place. We want to protect it. And so that's where there are things that you wouldn't, people won't know about open space authorities and, preservation areas that are even separate from cities and counties and things that people might have some familiarity with. There are so many different bureaucracies and levels of government that truly impact the quality of life. And yet most Americans, I don't think it's unique to Indians or anybody, I think most Americans aren't aware of that. Because they don't necessarily connect the dots on all the different agencies and levels of government where you do have elected officials that are there to listen to you. And yet we typically get just a small, same 3, 4, 5% of people that show up at the meetings or that interact with us. And most of the public they don't show up or interact until an issue comes to their front door. I think it's always better to come to recognize the way that your government works before you need something, or to show up when somebody else needs something. And so right now, when we're seeing, the impacts on they're going to come on healthcare, on Medi-Cal being impacted. Maybe you have insurance, but maybe there's folks that you work with or that go to your kids' schools or that are your neighbors that are going to be severely impacted. It's good to understand that now and see how you can help them. We have, of course, we see it in the news, that we have folks that are literally being abducted by masked men. Just because you or your family member hasn't been impacted yet, it doesn't mean they won't eventually.
Right.
And so it should matter to us right now when due process is being taken away from any Americans. And I know I'm kind of veering off a little, but there's a lot going on right now, and I think that we need to speak to it. And I think when due process starts to be taken away from anyone in our community, regardless of who they are, regardless whether they're documented or not, it means it's being taken away from all of us. Because if you can't if you get taken and said, well, but I'm a citizen. Well, if you don't have due process, you can't show you're a citizen, right? It's just like if you're being accused of stealing something and you don't have the ability to prove that you didn't, it doesn't matter. The truth doesn't matter anymore. And so it's really important for us to step up for everyone right now that's being impacted from policies from the federal down to the local level, and speak up at your local level, at your county, your supervisor, at your city level, speak to your state representatives when you see something that you just think is wrong and want to have your voice heard. Because we hear a lot from folks all across the spectrum, but a lot of them are Indian American, quite honestly.
Yeah, I mean, if our elected officials don't hear from us, they don't know it's a concern. Do one of you city council members want to jump in and talk about the bread and butter issues that you deal with and the ramifications of the policy coming down from the federal to state to county to city?
Sure, I can jump in just to echo what Assemblymember Kalra said. The old saying is all politics is local, but if you follow the money chain, all government is local too. Because if we can't put in a bike lane, if we can't pave the roads, if we can't put in a crosswalk, a lot of the money comes from the state and the feds. And the feds under this new administration are tying our hands in many ways, saying that we can't, as council members, or we can't prioritize under-resourced neighborhoods or communities of color or other things where we're not going to get money. So we have to follow, you have to follow the money. You also have to follow the restraints that this new administration is putting on. And so if there's a pothole in front of your house, there's probably a reason why it hasn't been paved over yet. And that's because the city doesn't have any money, because it blah, 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 and the green grass grows all around. So it's a longer story. But I think it's really important to note that, as Assemblymember Kalra said, very often what is on, just to kind of deviate where Assemblymember Kalra was talking about, if there's injustice anywhere, it's injustice everywhere. I'm a brown woman and my last name is Fernandez, and you wouldn't in general assume that I'm Pakistani. You would probably assume that I am Latino. And so I drive around now with my birth certificate and a copy of my passport in my car, because I don't know what's going to happen. And so, I mean, I just never thought we would be here, but you have to understand that we're living in unprecedented times, and I would sell my right foot to be in precedented times, because this is crazy.
Yeah, people are saying, when they say that, like, I really want to be in uninteresting times right now. Like, living in interesting times is overrated.
As a first-time council member, I'm in my first 9 months of serving. This has been.
How about Vice Mayor Venkatesh or?
Sure. I think, there's a lot of fear in our society right now. And I was pretty much I came when I was 4. I've been here for decades, but I go around in fear because one of the first questions is, were you born here? And I was not born here, right? So sometimes we're asked to speak, and I think our county's done a really great job about doing door hangers and what to do and who to call and all the organizations that you can call, and they'd support your system. But I feel like this organization is based on fear, and it's time that we stand up and we face them. I mean, this is not time to go hide in your house and do nothing about it. I think we should all advocate because just like when the truth was to come, money talks, right? You follow, like Nicole said, you follow the money. And there's so many resources in our communities and so much money that we have the ability to stand up to this fear.
So I'm gonna
Yeah.
we have questions and comments coming in from our live chat. So based on this conversation that we are having right now, we have a question: how or where do you suggest we show up to speak up for due process and other injustices, especially when people are fearful?
Who wants to take that question?
Sure, I'll take the question.
Please do.
The most obvious place, of course, is to show up at city council meetings or community meetings, or any neighborhood groups that are organizing themselves to address one particular or several issues. But I do have to say that appearing before the city council is not an easy process. It's pretty intimidating. Council sits on top, the people sit below, and just the optics itself is not intended to make it easy for anyone. So I always, I'm proud of these people who show up in spite of all their fears and their anxieties, just to make a point at city council. At city council meetings. But I also wanted to make a point about getting involved. It is so important that we sort of don't stay within a silo within our own cities or within our communities. Both Nicole and Mr. Kalra spoke about the fear and the anxiety that's sort of sweeping through our communities. And then, I'm on the Santa Clara County Library District Board, and I hear these heartrending stories about children who are scared to go to school because they don't know if something's going to happen to them at school. Their fellow students sort of taunting them, not in any bad way, but that's what kids do, saying, hey, your mommy's going to be taken away. Your mommy won't be there when you go back home. So kids don't want to go to school. Parents don't want to send their kids to school. And there's a huge decline in enrollment that is being seen at some of these less urban school districts, which is just very, very sad. I don't really know how we will recover from something like this.
I think that is very sad and understandable that people are afraid. You're seeing parents, you're seeing kids abducted from schools, from places of worship, from hospitals, from the courthouse. They say, "Oh, do it the right way," right? And people are showing up at the courthouse. They get their asylum granted, and they get abducted. And these are abductions. I mean, they're not identifying themselves. We just passed a bill that would require them to. We'll see whether they comply or not in terms of these. I hesitate to call them even federal agents because we don't know exactly who they are, but they are working under the guise of the federal government. If we want to see due process, we first have to speak up. And I know that No Kings rally, I was there. There was so many of them, which is fantastic. We had 7 million people out in the streets throughout the country. Probably have to get that around 10 million or more. And I think we probably have to do a general strike. Look, our origin is South Asian, and India knows a little something about civil disobedience and nonviolent non-cooperation. We have to put it into practice, and we have to make sacrifices. Look, at the end of the day, the South Asian community is amongst the wealthiest community, particularly Indian Americans, but just in general, if you look at the diaspora, and I know there's differences among the spectrum, but if you look specifically to Indian Americans, the wealthiest group in America. And I think that gives us an obligation to do something with that wealth, to do something with that privilege, and speak up and don't be silent. I know it can be intimidating to say something if a coworker says something, to say something, and to your neighbors or friends. But all of this is allowed to happen because people are complacent or too complacent. There aren't enough people. And we've seen it happen in New York, in Chicago, and other places where you see these folks sort of abduct somebody, and then 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people show up and stop it from happening. But that's a great risk. You're risk being arrested. You're risk being, thrown in jail. And ultimately, unless we are willing to sacrifice for this democracy, if we don't, we're going to lose this democracy. Even the founders of this democracy knew it was fragile and that someday there would be a tyrant. I know that we're not specifically talking partisan, but the reality is that's what's happening in the streets and in the communities. And if we don't show up, because due process is only as good as those that are willing to follow it. So for those that ask, what can we do? Speak up, show up, be very vocal when you see things happening that are violating individuals' rights. Maybe show up to court, show up to immigration courts, and be there to support people that are going to the court system. Be willing to take care. We passed a bill that allows folks to be able to take care of someone's kid if they get deported and they don't have time to make arrangements. If you have, loved ones or friends, a caretaker, maybe someone that takes care of your children, and they get abducted and now their kids are there, take in their kids, take care of them until they can get their kids back. I mean, these are very real fears that people are living through. And it's not exclusive just the Latino community. We see them going into the black neighborhoods in Chicago and just abducting young black kids. And they're going after Punjabi truck drivers. We saw that one older Punjabi woman who's lived here for decades that was deported after being treated horribly while in detention. This is happening to every community. It's going to happen to all communities unless we all speak up.
So interrupting just for a time check, we are at 4:30 now. And so we're going to go for 15 more minutes, or unless we have more comments or we have continue the engaging conversation. And I have a couple of questions from the chat as well. So it sort of matches what you were just talking about, Assemblymember Kalra, showing up. So there's a question on if anybody from you wants to share a personal story on how or why you actually began this career in civic engagement. This could be inspirational, motivational for others who really want to get into doing things like that. And I'm going to put in the other question as well in here, which you can take up as a follow-up, is what can young people do to get more involved in their communities and civic life? So, yeah.
Great questions. Who wants to jump in first?
I can go ahead. I'm a mom, so I wanted to be a role model for my kids. And my son, I had to campaign. I was like 5 of us going for one spot. And he's like, Mommy, you can do it. And so that focus got me to do this job. But a personal story is, like I said, I was one of the shyest kids in class. I would never talk. People would look at me and run away. So as something to myself, I said to myself, I can do this. And I ended up loving it. It's so rewarding. It brings, and it's about community and giving back. And we work with such a great county that we become friends now. Like Nicole's my friend, I can call up any supervisor, they're my friends, and you get so much back. And it wasn't like I was doing the PTA, like, rah, like you can actually see an impact of what you do, which was the best focus of it all, is you really do make an impact and you have a voice at the table. And that's, and I'm so proud of the young people these days because Nicole and I belong to this AAPI in San Mateo County. And there's a lot of young people and they're bringing people together and they have really strong voices. And I'm so proud of the generation before me that they're really advocating. Our generation was taught kind of to be quiet and not say something, but I really think that our voices are being heard now with some of the younger constituents. And so I'm just proud of this community. And, we've accomplished so much. You look at Indians or Pakistanis or anybody from Southeast Asia, and there's so many people who have accomplished so many things. So I'm just so proud of this community.
Anybody else with a personal story of how you got into public service?
Sure. I had worked in Santa Clara County for many years, so I was sort of familiar with what local government does. And I was also aware that local government doesn't get the credit it deserves many times in a county. And Nicole, you might be able to relate to this. The county government is sort of like a shadow government. At least the cities, we can see something. Fences go up, bike lanes are done, traffic lights are installed, houses come up, we give birth. But the county doesn't do any of those things. So, and it's this very large sort of organization sort of behind all these cities. And so I was part of that and realized there's so much good that the county does and local government does. And we don't need to be standing up and sort of shouting how wonderful we are, but we get so much done for the lives of ordinary people. And while we may not get the credit we deserve, it doesn't matter. We are part of the successes and the triumphs of just local residents. And that I think was important. I also jumped into city politics because there were some things that I didn't agree with that were happening in the city. And so I just went to a friend and I said, is there someone who's running and I can help campaign for this person? Turned out there was no one else, so I became that person. And but I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to accomplish in the 4 years. And all of us can relate to it. The housing element really sort of took over our lives for a couple of years, still does. So those are things that I wanted to see happen without too much anxiety at all levels. So I wanted to push that. I wanted to make sure that happened. It was stalling, as I think all of us realized what the government wants, and what Sacramento wants from cities is not the same thing what that residents want from the city. So we are always sort of having this tussle between our community and Sacramento. And so it seemed like a wonderful, challenging time to sort of jump into city politics. Anjana, you're muted.
Does anybody have specific comments about what young people could do? Any ideas? How could somebody in high school, college, or just after do to affect change?
Yeah, I can
Let
say
me just
that.
sort of jump in. Oh, excuse me, Nicole. Let me just finish my thing because that was your question, Anjana, earlier. We have a very active teen commission, and I'm very proud to say that if there are like 4 openings, we had 65 teenagers interviewing for these positions. And it's impossible. They've all done wonderful things. They've all designed apps. They've all debated at the International Court of Justice. Amazing things. So it's just hard to pick the people, but we're just so proud of our young people who want to get in one way or the other. Thank you. And I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, not at all. I just want to, if we're answering the second question about how you can get involved, what brought me to the table was I've been involved in politics for 20 years. So I've been a staffer to different politicians for about 20 years now. And I was tired of being in rooms where I didn't see myself. Regionally, we were very lucky to have people like former Assemblymember Kalra, but that was about it for South Asian representation for a very long time in Silicon Valley. And so I knew that I could bring something to the table because I've been in and around politics for a really long time. I was, native to San Mateo County. I was the youngest and first South Asian chair of the San Mateo County Democrats. I worked for a lot of politicians, so I knew that no one could do a better job than I. And so I had faith that I could actually contribute to my community. But that's you sort of have to have the vision for that. If you're young and trying to get involved. I have to say we have like Sheila, the teenagers today, especially Desi teenagers, are so qualified and overqualified in some respects. But if I could encourage a teenager to get involved politically, there's a role for you here. You don't have to be a city council member. You can be a commissioner, you can be a campaign manager, you can be an activist, you can run for school board, you can serve on a commission, there's any way to get involved, 100 ways to get involved. Just as someone had said earlier, just reach out to the local person who knows their way around that world, and they will connect you to a bunch of opportunities, nonprofits, civic engagement. If you have the time and the willpower, there is a way. And there's never been a more important time to get involved than right now.
I agree. One of the common threads I'm hearing from all of you is people don't realize the impact that the local government has on people. How do you think local journalism or storytelling could help people feel more connected to this decision-making process? And at a personal level, why do you think it's important for community more focused media like India Currents to exist? What's the role we play?
I wanted to touch on the last question too, but I'll start with this one. And I think it's incredibly important, especially now more than ever, when we've seen kind of like the network media and what have you get more and more diminished in importance. We're not seeing as many newspapers. The ones that we do are all owned by the same corporations. We're not getting unique voices. And so I think the only place to go really for unique input, unique perspectives and local perspectives is independent media. And particularly ethnic media has become much more creative than the standard traditional media, and has some more nimbleness, but also because of the diversity of those asking the questions, it brings out a different type of, it carries a different lens, and it brings out a different kind of story that you won't really get anywhere else. And so I really appreciate India Currents, which itself has evolved over the years in such a phenomenal way. And it's so important for that to happen. And I've talked to India Currents in the past about my background and the reason why I chose to serve. There's a lot of reasons for it, but I just, when I was a kid, I made that decision, but don't want to go into all that detail. But I did become a public defender, and during my time as a public defender, I very clearly saw the disparities that existed in living in the wealthiest region, the wealthiest state on earth, to have extreme income inequality, living in a valley, a kind of a tale of two valleys. My role, my whole career has been to reduce suffering. That was my role before I was an elected official. It continues to be my role now, from city council to state assembly. And to the young people, I think it is great to see young people get involved. In fact, I see quite a lot of South Asian young people that are on really important causes on climate, talking about wealth disparity. And I would just say, I don't know if they necessarily need a message in terms of getting involved, but I think it's how to get involved, how they get involved. And I think parents influence that as well. And so I would actually send a message to the parents that as your young people are trying to determine how they want to be involved, give them the freedom to decide that on their own. It's not about resume building just to get into college. It's about them finding out who they are and what they care about and what they're passionate about. I had a lot of very tense conversations with my family when I was growing up, when I was choosing a life of service, when I chose, ended up going to law school, then wanted to be a public defender. And I think those are important conversations to have. But what I would say to the parents of these incredible young people is all the sacrifice that our parents and grandparents made gives our young people the greatest wealth we can imagine. It's not money, it's options. Most people in the world don't have options. Our youth have options. Let them explore those options and let them dive into it, because then they'll really shine in whatever it is that grabs their passion, and they'll be successful by, I think, the most important definition, not by how much money they have, but by what kind of impact they can make and how much joy they get out of the work that they do.
That's wonderful. How do you
I
think?
love that. Sorry,
Go
just a
ahead,
time
Prati.
check. We are at 4:43. And also just like I love that sentiment of finding joy in the work that people do, and kids can choose a path that they are more passionate about. And I think that's very relatable to all of us, I think, as South Asians, when we're trying to choose our careers. Before we start wrapping up, I just wanted to read out some of the comments that we have been getting. Many of the people have been resonating with a lot of the things that everybody has spoken here. There has been reiteration of some of the quotes. So I think a lot of things each of you that have said has really resonated with everybody. People have been talking about how representation matters, how going local matters. We have somebody thanking Assemblymember Kalra for Diwali being recognized as a holiday in California. Um, Also, just people talking about how living in interesting times is overrated. Again, there's appreciation for Councilmember Mohan for talking about the stress our kids are facing. We have a suggestion in the comment section again, especially for the youth, that always do the unseen work behind the scenes to build community, trust, meet for coffee, reach out to neighbors, go for walks together. And like I said, people are reiterating some of the things that you have said because that was something that they really loved to hear from you. But this has been mostly the comments and the questions from the chat. Anjana, I'm going to hand it back to you to start wrapping up the conversation.
Sounds great. Those are wonderful comments. We'll do a couple really quick rapid fire questions. The first one is, one lesson you've learned from serving your community that has surprised you.
I can go.
Sorry. One of my big surprises has been that you can always find something in common with someone, even if you are on different sides of an issue. The number of conversations I've had with people that I always told myself I would never sit down with them has been illuminating.
Wonderful.
For me, I think the surprise was that I can disagree on any number of points with someone. And once the discussion is done and we've stepped away from the council chambers, we can still have a civil conversation.
That's wonderful.
Same lines, you can disagree with somebody, but if you're listening and you're compassionate, they have respect for you and they won't see your point of view, but you can be amicable.
Yeah, start from respect, a point of respect.
I generally agree with that, and I've had that experience, although I think in the last couple of years, there's been a little bit of a diminishing of that. Although, similar to what everyone said, I do think that when you actually meet people in person, it's much different than being a keyboard warrior, and they might say this or they might insult you online. You meet them in person, it breaks down walls. I think that interpersonal connection, which we've lost so much of, and I think that's allowed so much of this stuff to fester. That's why I said earlier, get outside, go meet people in person. It changes everything, even if you don't always agree with them ideologically.
I agree. Perfect. Absolutely. One last question for everyone. One thing that every listener can do to get involved in the local government. One idea from each of you.
Join a commission, join the youth commission, join the EDAC commission, join a housing commission, join a commission in your city.
Okay.
I'd say reach out to one of the council members. It's not that daunting. You send an email, and I think I speak for everyone here when I say we all read emails, and just something small. You know, I have coyotes attacking my fruit trees. You know, it gets attention. So it's not that we're not that inaccessible.
Can you solve the squirrels in my backyard? I don't think so.
I don't represent you. You're not in my city, so no.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Echoing what the other two council members had said, proactively invite information. So sign up, just the first step is just being receptive to information. Sign up for your school board email list and your city email list and your favorite 3 politicians e-newsletters, and just be receptive to the information that has not been pushed, and also stay off next door. Nothing good comes from next door.
I agree.
I would say, I think everyone made great points. I would say 2 things. One is find some issue. It could be a street light out. It could be maybe your local business having some problem getting their permit and want to help them with it. It might take 10 days or 10 months to fix it, but find one issue and try to see it through. And maybe you'll get to a roadblock and can't, but that's also a learning experience as well. I think that's really helpful to see how accessible some of your local leaders are, but also some of the challenges. And maybe you'll figure out something that'll be helpful for your city leaders to know about. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
That's wonderful. I think that's great, great advice. Thank you so much, Assemblymember Kalra, Councilmember Mohan, Councilmember Fernandez, and Vice Mayor Venkatesh for such an insightful, informative, and hopefully actionable conversation for our listeners. We hope this has inspired many more from our community to get involved. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and asking questions. Let us know in the comments what topics you'd like us to cover in future. Follow us if you haven't already. We do these things regularly. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good
Thank you.